for why their city suffered tremendous damage. Our abuse of our own waterfront ecologically will similarly cause us, kind of expose us to a lot of risks as our lakefront, as our water changes over time. And so we need to restore as much of that natural function, that resiliency as possible as we do waterfront development. So yes, we have to look at what was the experience in terms of markets and Battery Park versus the Chicago shoreline and all of those other pieces. But we also have to look at Katrina, and we have to look at wetland restoration, because it's not just a piece of developable land. It's an ecosystem that really influences our water and water supply. Riverkeeper has participated in waterfront planning since 1989. And have been through numerous iterations of the South Towns Connector, but we've also been through numerous iterations of what the proposals have been for the Outer Harbor, for Route 5, for the brownfields between South Park and the Buffalo River. Right now there's another proposal and a project going on with a brownfields opportunity area that a number of people have been participating in. And this area is constantly in flux, largely because it's vacant land at the moment, and that makes it really attractive for economic development and brownfields people to kind of jump at this scenario. That's why we're getting pressure here. This image that we developed was in response to the last round of when the NFTA sent out this proposal for developing the Outer Harbor. They had certain objectives in mind in terms of density of taxable land and development activity. And what they had done was kind of allocate all of that development out equally, like a subdivision out over the Outer Harbor. And what we wanted to show through this illustration is that by concentrating the development in certain areas and nodes, one crossing right over Michigan Bridge and Michigan Avenue, so that we kind of connect through an existing street pattern to the Outer Harbor at the Seaway Piers, and the second one at the terminus of Ohio Street in the Outer Harbor, that we could get all of that same square footage, but then also create a huge park and do some of this ecological restoration that we also need to accomplish. This is really important because in Western New York we're sold this bill that says either you're doing an environmental or park project or you're doing an economic development project. And it's the most ridiculous thing. I mean, we tried that model, and you can go out to Bethlehem Seal and see how well it works. It just doesn't. It's a bad prescription. So this is just to give you context. The other thing that's really timely and something we should keep in mind as we look at this site is that this land, all of it, remains in control of the NFTA. They are in negotiations right now with Empire State Development to possibly transfer this land over to the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation. The Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation has said this parcel, this section, this node is their priority for the next 5 years. Bass Pro, the foot of Main Street, which many of our organizations really support. And so the only area in this stretch of land which is likely to be developable, including private investment over the next 5 years, is this section here, which is Freezer Queen, and the NFTA's Port Terminal area, which has got really nice old historic structures, and if, by the way, you want to drive out and get to, is really painfully easy right now. You go over the Skyway, you get off an exit, you go into the lot, you want to leave there, you either go straight and turn left and you're back in the city, or you turn right and you're going into the South Towns. And so this project, despite all of the urgency you will see in the press, will not inhibit development on the Outer Harbor for the next 5 years. It's just really easy to get to this node, which is developable right now. Oh, I've got the clicker. Okay, so this kind of is the backdrop for doing the Outer Harbor. This is the current configuration of the Route 5 stretch, and you'll notice in the middle the Route 5 is kind of elevated. It's the functional equivalent of a 3-story building. It's 25 to 30 feet during most of the stretch of the Outer Harbor. And we have this dual system of roadways where you've got the elevated highway and then you've got an access road on both sides. Over and over and over again in the 8-year planning process for this roadway, the community said that elevated embankment is a giant barrier between our city and the waterfront. It limits how much waterfront area we have. It limits the visual connection. Anthony showed you how long it takes to get from downtown out to the Outer Harbor, but it's even worse when you're at Tiff Nature Preserve and you cannot see Lake Erie, you cannot get to Lake Erie. You actually have to drive way out of your way to get something that's right across the street. It's absolutely ludicrous. There are And the Outer Harbor project, the Route 5 South Towns Connector, is actually comprised of 4 different elements. And this is really important because the Waterfront Coalition is really only concerned with the design components of one of those 4 components. So I want to show you the others that could go to construction within a year, probably even 6 months, if we decided to make them a priority versus the connector road for the NFTA parcel. This is Ohio Street, and this connects the Cobblestone District out to that node at Freezer Queen. This takes what is now a really dysfunctional, worn-out, pothole-covered land on which Carl Palladino has plans to build condominiums, and the Valley Community Association is doing a big park, public access facility, and pulls the Cobblestone District out to the Outer Harbor. This could go tomorrow. Nobody would fight this project. The second portion is an arterial that would connect from Tiff Street up to the 190 highway. And its exact location within this huge stretch of brownfields has not been finalized. There have been some discussions about how this would impact housing in the South Buffalo Hickory Woods neighborhood. That neighborhood has withstood enough challenges. This is a simple roadway design that can be better done so we don't have to impact neighborhoods. But this would allow us to capitalize upon the brownfield sites, which otherwise have to send their trucks out onto Route 5 over the Skyway and back onto the 190 in order to get on the mainline thruway. This is a really smart brownfield project, again, one that should move forward as quickly as possible. And then the third part, this is the Tiff Street arterial, sure. And this shows you the route that would kind of go from Tiff Street on the bottom up through, it actually crosses over right where the mobile oil farms would be, so it actually also supports brownfield development on the north side of the Buffalo River, taking things to the 190. And then the last, the third portion, and all 3 of these options are the same under every alternative for the Route 5 project, is the section of Route 5 that goes from 179, which is, you know, the big loop at the Woodlawn Beach State Park, all the way over to Ridge Road. And this area turns into a beautiful tree-lined boulevard that really supports the housing on both sides of that street, that really supports economic development, that creates a walkable community. And it goes that way all the way to Ridge Road. And the Ridge Road intersection, which is right now a series of kind of elevated embankments, goes down to grade because the city of Lackawanna said this on-off ramp business is killing our economic development. Their comments in the EIS process are very clear. Get our intersection road, you know, down to grade. So then there's the last section of the roadway, which goes from Ridge Road all the way out to the Coast Guard station. And the plan here is to do for Furman Boulevard, which is the roadway that runs immediately, you know, the closest thing to the waterfront, make a lot of aesthetic improvements. You know, do improved lighting, do nicer landscaping. And that's all fine. Those things would be true under any boulevard. But this is the part that's really problematic. Despite generations of comments and a draft environmental impact statement that said the elevated section would be brought to grade as in every section feasible, the final plan for Route 5 keeps the elevated section throughout the entire corridor between the Ridge Road intersection and the Coast Guard. And so that pink line, or red line, is just, I'm highlighting how this little piece here says existing ground line. That's where the roads stay. This pink line is just drawing your attention. Existing ground line, that's where the road stays. Existing ground line, that's where the road stays. So that when you stand at Tift, you will still see the giant embanked wall. When you are on your waterfront, that wall either allows you in the waterfront or or keeps you out of the waterfront, but it does not remove the barrier. DOT officials, in a presentation to the Buffalo Niagara Partnership, were very clear that if we ever remove the Skyway, they will have to rework this entire project between Ridge Road and the Skyway in order to remove this section. So we're making a $50 million investment that we'll have to rework if we remove the Skyway. So it actually is more cost intensive if we build this project.
The way it's currently proposed.
Yes. So essentially, we're keeping the right